and welcome back to another live video. I'm actually, I'm way overdue in doing a live video for my main channel. I feel like I'm just processing a lot of emotions right now, and I love using this channel to process things, share things that I'm learning about myself, and in hopes that not only helps me, but it helps you as well. So that's the purpose of this video. First, I wanted to share that somebody I know because of YouTube and I are working on a really neat project together. So I'm not going to say her name just in case she wants it to be private, but you know who you are if you're watching, and you will know who she is soon once we work on this project together, and is part of Eco Vegan Pal. So if any of you are currently part of Eco Vegan Pal, have been considering it, or have been just, I don't know, looking for some new ways to connect with other people, I think that you're going to be really excited about what we're working on. And yeah, so right now I just need to kind of gear myself up for recording a video on my main channel, the Eco Vegan Gal channel, and like refresh my makeup and hair and change, because I've been hanging out in this robe. It's so interesting. I'm always really fascinated by energy, and yeah, like I didn't feel like I got enough sleep last night because I stayed up late, and then I took a walk, and I had a meeting today with the person I mentioned earlier, and came back, and I just immediately wanted to change out of my clothes and put on this lovely secondhand robe that I got at a clothing swap, and I feel very cozy. But unfortunately, the coziness is not helping me feel motivated to do the video that I was scheduled to do at 5. And also because of the things I'm going to talk about in this video today, I just feel like not quite ready. I feel like I can get so emotional, and it's really tough to do live videos or just any video, when I'm feeling really emotionally sensitive. So I will do my best to process this. I think it's common, right? It's very draining. And yet I'm incredibly grateful for the aha moment, the realization that I had thanks to my friend who I was talking with today. So for context, a few weeks ago got in a situation with a friend that has been really hard for me to process. I'm not going to share the details, just out of privacy. But it was a situation that is just, there's a lot of gray area. And I've been in similar situations, but not quite this. And like, there's a lot of things going on with that friendship that it just feels complicated. And I really have felt this urgency to resolve it, because it feels like there's just this weight of that situation, that unresolved situation, hanging over me. And yet I want to handle it delicately. And so I was talking to another friend today, a very good friend of mine, sharing how I was feeling about that situation. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge Nod8D, who, oh, hold on a second, I need to change. There's this new feature, if you didn't see my video from the other day, where I got very excited about this new feature where I can like put your comments up on the screen. Isn't that so cool? I love that. Thank you for the sweet words. I really appreciate that. So anyways, I was talking to my very good friend about the situation and asking for advice. And this friend really helped me understand something that I don't know if I've really ever thought about before. And it's like an emotional detox, where right now it's kind of like when you've cried a lot, and after you cry, you just feel exhausted and drained. Or after you go to a really good therapy session and you just feel like broken open, but in a really good way. That's how I feel right now. And I wanted to share with you some realizations that I had, because if any of you relate to me or want to get to know me better, then I think that these are really fascinating. So a few days ago, for context, I was the co-host of my friend's podcast, the Food Heals podcast. And there's an episode coming up in probably a few weeks, sometime in June, I would imagine, where we interviewed this woman that specializes in clearing energy blocks, basically, like helping people understand why they are how they are and helping them move through it so that they can live better lives. And that's the essence of it. And one thing that this woman said to me after we finished recording is she asked me, and I think this is what she said, it gets a little fuzzy, but I think she asked me if I have a fear of being controlled. I know she asked me something about control, and I know that when she said that, I reflected on it, and I thought about how, yes, I do have a fear of being controlled, and I started to think about my childhood, but I also have a fear of being controlling. And today, I went another level deeper. So I actually took notes because my friend was so wise that I had to type out some of the things that this friend was saying. So I realized today that like some of the roots of my fear of feedback. I am terrified of negative feedback. And I think most of us are, like maybe not most of us, but it's common. And maybe terrified is not something that everybody experiences, but for me, I am very, very scared of negative feedback. And I've known that for a while. For example, I've talked a lot about how it's really uncomfortable to get negative comments on YouTube. I know that I'm always trying to do my best. I've been, especially lately, really trying to be authentic and be myself. And when somebody writes something really mean, or even I get a thumbs down, it hurts, and my brain goes to this place of trying to figure out why and wanting to change. And I recognize more and more that I've spent so much of my life trying to change because I'm trying to avoid getting in trouble. And just the conversation I had with my friend today really helped me notice it in a way that I really don't know if I've ever looked at it before. I have a fear of doing something wrong, even when I'm trying to do my best. I think I live with this fear constantly. I was thinking earlier today about stress and anxiety. I'm reading a really great book right now about managing hormones and things like that. And I know that I carry a lot of stress, but it's a different type of stress that I find it's very deep, right? I'm very good at finding ways to reduce stress. My life in general is relatively stress-free, but I still carry some sort of stress. And I was thinking earlier today how it's really hard for me to understand where that stress comes from, right? And I think that what's been happening is that stress is because I am constantly trying to prevent negative feedback. I feel like probably every moment of my life, I have been trying so hard to do things the right way. I've been trying to be good enough. I've been fighting against this deep fear of not being good enough. This fear of being wrong, of being punished, of getting in trouble. And my greatest fear is that no matter how hard I try, I'm still going to screw it up somehow. And that's very tied into feelings of failure. And I think that has been the undercurrent of so much of my life, and probably one of the biggest reasons that I haven't reached some of my goals is because I'm just terrified of doing things wrong. And when I was talking to my friend, it felt like I had more clarity than I've experienced in a long time around this. Just the way the feedback was given. It's so amazing how one person can shed light on something that you've never been able to really see before. So if any of you can resonate with this and you're feeling that you're really relating to this, know that this was a gift that I'm passing on from my friend. And it's interesting because I have also been reflecting on how I've tried going to therapy a lot. Not a lot, maybe. Let's see, how many therapists? I saw my first therapist in college. I remember this other really mediocre therapist. Two, actually, the most recent felt very mediocre. I would guess I've seen a minimum of 3 therapists, not that many, right? And I just have there's only the first one felt really, really good. But it's been challenging for me to find a therapist that I felt like really helped open up my heart in the way that I wanted to examine. I felt like it was often very surface level, so I started to feel like it was a waste of my time and money. Now, fortunately, I surrounded myself with very wise friends, and this friend, especially that I talked to today, just so wise. It was wise in a way that I don't know if I've ever really noticed about this friend. It was amazing. What a gift. So sometimes you don't have to go to therapy if you have people around you that know you so well and have a great perspective on life. They can provide you more than many therapists can. I'm not saying that is the solution. I'm just saying for me, I've noticed that. And also different types of healers. So that, for example, that energy healer and clearer that I'll share with the episode with you when it comes out. She's so powerful and I'm very drawn to her. So I really want to do a session with her because I want to have these realizations more often. But I will tell you that you get what you ask for a lot of times. And sometimes you don't always get what you need, or get what you want, but you get what you need. And I know that a big mission of mine this year that I haven't felt super proactive about, but I've thought a lot about was that I wanted to uncover my limiting beliefs and my emotional blocks. And there's been a lot of clearing this year, and it's so intense sometimes. It's so intense. When you get to the root of some of the things that you've been holding on to for most of, or if not all of your life, it's really intense. It feels like you're going through a detox. That's how I feel right now. I feel so drained. I really want to do the video for my channel, but I'm so drained. I don't know how I can get myself pumped up for it. And I don't know if it's even necessary for me to do that video. Maybe I'll wait and do it later. I'm not sure. It's frustrating because sometimes these clearings, these we learn things about ourselves at times that don't feel like the best time. You know, when I started talking to my friend earlier today, I kind of was looking for a really good answer, but the answer I got was so deep and I just didn't expect for it to affect me in the way that it has. So if you're just joining, you can go back to the beginning of this video to learn more about what happened. And I don't want to be too repetitive for those of you watching the recording, as is the case for most people. So I'll just share with you more of my notes. One of the best pieces of advice that my friend gave me was that I should focus on training myself to receive feedback and not creating a story. This friend really encouraged me to focus more on the reality, on the facts, and less on the emotional reaction to it. There's also some really good advice is learning how to receive people's perspectives, but not believing that their perspectives is who I am. And I think that that's also a huge thing that I've been carrying is I'm sure, again, I would imagine this was coming from my mother. I've talked a lot about how I think that she's a narcissist after researching narcissism and all of that, and just reflecting so much on how my mother acts now and how she must have acted for most of my childhood, is that my mother, there was a lot of shame growing up. There was a lot of times where I felt like I should be ashamed for who I am. I was thinking about that earlier today too, before this conversation, how, I struggle with my body so much. Right lately, I've been feeling chubbier than usual. And I was today just feeling so frustrated. I'm like, my body just feels inflamed and my body feels out of shape because I haven't been going to yoga. And I was thinking, like, have I been doing a really bad job eating? And like, I'm confused because I feel like I have been eating well, and yet my body just feels completely weird. And I was just sitting there like trying to think about how I could get my body to feel better. And first of all, I need to start working out, or I would like to start working out again, and more than just walking. Like my workouts have basically been like walking, but I haven't done like any really good stretching or core or weight exercises or more intense cardio. And I want to start doing that again. And I have to practice not beating myself up from where I am right now. But also, a lot of those feelings I have about my body come from my mother, who shamed me a lot about how I looked. She was terrified that I was going to be overweight. And so I remember from such a young age, my mom was trying to do everything in her power to prevent me from being overweight. She was so afraid. And because my mother associates overweight with not being good enough, not being acceptable, I think my mom was really trying to protect me and try. She didn't. I think she looks at overweight people and thinks that they're, I don't know. Who knows what my mom thinks, but she has a lot of negative associations with people that are overweight. That is her fear, but she projected her fear onto me as from a very young age, and I associated my mom has picked up on my body my entire life, as far as I can remember. It's incredibly painful. And for so long, I've carried around this deep fear and deep shame, and I've never loved my body. And it's a lot of work. But even after all the work that I've done on myself, I still have days like today where I am so frustrated and I feel so disappointed with myself, with where my body's at. And I don't want to feel that. It's an awful feeling, but it's a deep feeling. It's been in me for so long, and I've done the work, but some of this work is life work. Some of this work is a very long journey, I've realized. And I have to be very conscious. It's like, yeah, right now I don't feel like I look my best, and I literally do not feel my best. Like my body feels weird to me. But it's not an overnight thing. I just have to become more conscious about what I'm eating and making sure I'm eating food that makes me feel good. And I need to be conscious about where my hormones at. Maybe my hormones are just in a specific place right now. And yeah, it is good. It would be good for me to get more movement in, right? But to shame myself, and I have all these old fears of people judging me for my appearance. My whole life, I have been terrified of how people perceive me for my appearance. And ironically, that's part of the reason I try to embrace no makeup and my hair a mess and being in a robe, like my place a mess. Like I purposely will come on camera like this because I'm trying to teach myself to accept myself and not care if I look perfect or not. Now granted, very ironically, I feel like for my other channel, it's a lot harder to do that. And I want to record this live video some point today, hopefully. And I feel like I won't feel comfortable doing that until I freshen up my makeup and do my hair and put on some different clothing. So if you see that video, that's probably what I would do. I don't think I would feel comfortable dressed like this or my bed unmade on that channel. I don't even know if that really matters anymore, but that's my current comfort level with that channel. So anyways, I'm just, my whole point in all of this is that I think growing up, as we commonly do with our parents, is that my mother was afraid, I think as a form of protection, either protection and or her own narcissism, if that's really a quality of hers, is that she was so concerned about, I think she wanted me to be perfect. Either to protect me because she thinks that being perfect is important in life, as many of us do, and or she wanted me to be perfect so that she looked perfect, which is a quality of narcissistic mothers. So whatever it was, I have carried shame my whole life and fear that if I disappoint anyone, I'm a bad person. If I mess up, I'm a bad person. I should be ashamed of myself for messing up. If I don't try hard enough, I'm not a good person. So I basically have my whole life been working really hard to do things right. And the more experience I get, the older I get, I realize there is very few times where it's black and white, right or wrong. I don't even know if there really is, and we like to form all these judgments about things. Like, I think that's part of the reason I was experimenting with Christianity a few years ago, and I just never could get into Christianity on a deep level because it always felt so black and white to me, and I don't view life as black and white. There's so many things about Christianity that I am drawn to, and yet then I felt like, this is a whole nother topic, but I'm just going to bring this up because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is like there's part of me that's like very drawn to going to church and drawn to a lot of the Christian perspective, but I was repelled simultaneously because I felt like I couldn't even be a good enough Christian. I felt like a fraud in church, and I felt like the people that I went to church with were always telling me about the right way to be a Christian, the right way to pray and believe in God, and the right way to view things, and it was just like too much for me because I just was so focused on how I was doing everything wrong, and that's so unhealthy for me. It stifles me. And then this friend also said to me today that there are going to be moments in life where I will fall short of people's expectations. There are moments when I will break my word. There are moments where I will overpromise and underdeliver, but that doesn't make me a bad person. And hearing that was so healing because I'm terrified of not meeting people's expectations of me. I'm terrified of how people would react if I broke my word. That video I was supposed to record at 5 today, it's hard for me not to do that video. I feel like I let people down. I feel like people are going to see me as unprofessional or not reliable or inconsistent, all these things. But what do? Sometimes I need to prioritize myself and my self-care over other people's expectations of me. Sometimes myself comes first. And I will break my word as a result if that means that I am taking care of myself. And if it means keeping my word but going against who I am and what I need for myself, is it worth it? And that's something that I'm really trying to figure out because I've been trained, and I think a lot of it's my mother's belief and my father and probably my grandparents of like, if you don't do this, you're a bad person. And I'm terrified of being a bad person. My whole life has been constructed so that I can it's like all YouTube, everything that I've done is like, how can I be a likable person? How can I get people to like me? And if people don't like me, it's devastating. Because I feel like if people don't like me, then I'm doing something wrong. And unfortunately, there are many people that don't like me. There are many people that don't agree with me. There are people that will give me thumbs downs on the videos no matter how hard I try. And I've just had to accept that. It doesn't mean that it's easy. And as my friend pointed out, it doesn't need to reinforce a story about who I am. It doesn't need to be internalized. And that was a breath of fresh air. That just because someone doesn't like me, that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. If I disappoint someone, that doesn't mean that my whole life I failed everything, right? I don't have to be super upset and internalize. I have to learn how not to internalize it though, because I've internalized so much in my life. the other thing is this idea of you should have known better. Ooh, even just saying that out loud, I can feel that in my gut. I think I probably heard that a lot as a kid. You should have known better. Ugh. Literally every time I say that, it is intense. And I must have heard that a lot. I don't know if it was just from my mom. But I think as parents, I have to believe that my mother was doing the best that she could. I have so much compassion and love for my mother, and I know she loves me. I don't think my mom ever has tried to hurt me. She's not malicious. She may be narcissistic or just, human. I don't know. I'm still confused about who my mother is. And I think that if she did say those words to me, you should have known better, she was probably trying to teach me. I think that when parents say things like that, they're not trying to hurt their kids. Even teachers, right? I've had really tough teachers, many of us have, and I don't think any of them are trying to hurt our feelings. But that word should is usually, I really try not to use that. When I find myself saying should, I have to catch myself and often retract it. Because who knows, what do we know about what someone should or shouldn't do? And that idea of you should have known better, that is one of my big weaknesses. I find myself saying that or wanting to say that to people. And I'll get really frustrated with people, and I find myself shaming people, my close friends, my relationships, my family members, because it is this tactic, but it's a way of saying, you hurt me. I wish that you hadn't have hurt me. I trusted you not to hurt me, and you hurt me. Well, most of us don't mean to hurt other people. So it's oftentimes the other person who's saying the word should. It's almost like should is a defense mechanism or protective measure. It's a way of us trying to prevent something. That's, talk about control, to come back around to that subject matter. I think that I try to control so much is because I'm trying to give myself the best chance of doing things right, because I don't want to ever hear anybody say to me, you should have blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know if I did talk about this, right? It's a bit of a blur, but a few months ago when I put on that event in March at the Natural Products Expo, I felt a lot of shame after that event, because I know that event did not go perfectly. And I was terrified of feedback. I was terrified of, and I did get feedback. So I think as soon as I got negative feedback, I was terrified of receiving more, because I felt like I fell short of people's expectations. I felt like I maybe broke my word on a few things. I don't remember at the top of my head, or I overpromise and underdeliver. And that, I have so much shame around doing all of those things. So I felt awful. And I was absolutely terrified of whatever feedback, because I didn't want to hear anybody tell me that they were disappointed. Because when I hear that someone's disappointed in me, I think I'm a bad person. And so what I've found myself doing so much unconsciously or really unaware of why is I try to protect myself from people that are judgmental. I try to protect myself from people that are critical. I try to distance myself from people that are not fully aware of themselves, because I've seen, I've had relationships fail or situations not go as well as I want to with people that victimize themselves or blame the game or whatever. I haven't been talking to this one friend of mine for years, and the last time we really spoke, we got into this big discussion. It wasn't quite a fight. It was somewhere between a discussion and a fight. And I remember we just didn't know how to see eye to eye on it. And we got wounding each other inadvertently. And so I think since then, and in a number of different relationships, whether romantic or friendships or family, I've been trying to protect myself by steering clear of relationships with the people that seem similar to the people that I've had these conflicts with. Or I've also get very nervous when I feel like they're going to criticize me or they're going to tell me I hurt their feeling or something, right? And it's different from not wanting to take responsibility. But I guess because I have this underlying fear that I'm doing things wrong all the time, or that I'm doing things wrong accidentally. Accidents are really tough for me. I think I probably must have been shamed a lot for things I did accidentally. And I think I was also shamed for just being myself. And so that's where it's painful, is when I feel criticized for being myself. Like someone criticizes me on my appearance, which I have a lot of insecurities on, as many of us do. That's scary. When somebody criticizes me on what I say or things that I'm doing, it's terrifying because I feel like I work so hard to be self-aware so that I won't make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, even when you're trying not to, that I think is where the most pain is. I think that growing up, I was very innocent and I was just trying to live my life and be who I was. And I think probably my parents or other caregivers or teachers, someone or multiple people shamed me for doing things that I didn't mean to do and didn't realize that were wrong or bad or hurtful, whatever, right? And the other thing is, like, everything was it subjective or objective? Is subjective the one where it's like biased or unbiased, right? So somebody's experience of you is all through their lens. So I may have thought that I was doing something good, but if somebody interpreted what I did as hurtful or bad, it's like two people with completely different views on the world interpreting a situation. And so I basically have constructed these stories about myself and spent so much of my life trying to avoid disappointing or hurting people. And avoid trying to avoid feedback. Ironically, it's like I enjoy like these YouTube channels, and on social media, you're just always subject to feedback. And it feels great when it's positive feedback. Like whichever one of you gave me a thumbs up, like it's nice. We have these releases of serotonin or dopamine or whatever in our heads when somebody says something kind to us, rewards us. That feels so good. But man, it hurts a lot for me when somebody criticize or whatever. So my friend encouraged me to learn how to separate reality from my story. So in these times where I'm scared, or these times where I'm not feeling good enough, to really step back and examine it and say, like, what's real here? And I think that's really, really helpful. I also wrote this down, like having the scars of judgment, of being judged in the past, or shamed, or reprimanded, whatever in the past. Those leave scars. I think anything that hurts us leaves scars. And there are many times in our lives where our wounds get opened up, and we can either choose to let them heal naturally and hopefully fully recover, or put a Band-Aid over them and ignore them, or try to prevent them from happening in the future. There's so many different tactics. And the last thing is, okay, there was a couple things I wrote down. So one of them was that we have a tendency as humans to not allow ourselves to suck at things. A lot of us have conditioned ourselves to be rewarded only when we feel like we've done things right or perfect. And if they're not right, if they're bad, if they're sloppy or whatever, it's not okay. I think that's an epidemic in our society. And lastly, one of the most healing things that my friend said was that all chaos completes itself in peace. And so sometimes it takes longer than others. but we need to trust that those chaos and pain and all of that will be resolved. So it feels really good to share these things. I hope that if this resonates with you, that you find your own healing and you know that you're not alone. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for being part of my journey. If these are not your wounds, if these are not things that you have experienced, then I hope that you allow yourself to figure out what your wounds are, and to do your best to clear them away. Identifying them is the first step, and it can be really hard to identify them. And sometimes we identify them in ways or timelines that we're not expecting. So I certainly did not expect for this all to come up today, and I'm grateful that it did, and I just need to take some time to process. All of this processing is very tiring, so I'm going to do some self-care and lie in my bed in my robe and maybe watch something and relax. I'm scheduled to talk with somebody at 8. So I don't know if I'm going to get around to the other video today. Maybe late at night or something. I don't know. But if I do, stay tuned. You can subscribe to that other channel, Eco Vegan Gal channel, and turn on notifications if you like being part of live videos. Thank you again, whether you're watching the live video of this or the recording. I usually go live on this channel around 5 p.m. Pacific time. Next week, I think I am scheduled to spend some time with friends next Monday at 5 p.m. So I don't know when I'll be live next, but again, you can turn on the notifications and subscribe to this channel so that you know when I am, if you enjoy that. And otherwise, you can just look for the recordings, another reason to subscribe and turn on notifications. Sending so much love to you and all the very best on your own individual journey, and wherever that leads you, whoever you are. The more compassion I have for myself, the more compassion I have for other people, and vice versa. So I know we all have our own ups and downs, and we all have our own wounds and sensitivities and feelings and opinions, and just know that one of the best things that we can do in life is to be more accepting of others and accepting of ourselves. So I wish that for you. Today we had another school shooting in the U.S., and it's just nuts. You know, we are lucky to be alive. I feel like there are times where we can feel so divided and so scared, and a lot of the tragedies that happen stem from a place of fear and lack of acceptance. So the best way to, since we can't control it or prevent it, the most powerful thing we can do is to focus more on love, and from love allow ourselves to be more accepting of ourselves and other people. And that is one of the greatest tools we have within ourselves. I want to acknowledge F. Roy, who said, I can relate to you because in some ways my experience in life mirrors yours. So whenever it does, I hope that you find relief or insight in my experiences. And then Jen said, thanks for being so vulnerable and open. You're very welcome, Jen. It feels really good for me, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that. So thank you for having the acceptance of me and the openness to listen and just being here. It's one of the best gifts I could ever ask for. Okay, with that said, I'm going to go do some resting, and I will see you very soon. Lots of love to you in the meantime.